Welcome to Factorio Space Age. My name is Nilaus, and we are here with basically the final episode of our Megabase, where we tied all together. The Promethium science has by far been the most complex one, and we have done 3 episodes on the various components of the here. One about how to get the Promethium, the spaceship, and one to get how to get concept chips or processors, and how to do biter eggs or biter croissants. So now that we have all the ingredients, then it's just about putting them into assembler, and then you're good. No, that would be too easy for this one. This is a really complex logistical nightmare to set up, but I have found a way that works absolutely amazing and has been running stable for, well, let's have a look here. How long time has it been running stable? 10 hours of just pure stability here. 1 million signs per minute in 10 hours. So yeah, it runs very stable and without any maintenance or upkeep. So that should be a pretty good comfort to know that this works. Right. So again, all of the blueprints, all the designs, they're available to patron supporters. So if you want to rebuild your own Megabase, or if you want to improve or change, then you can download the save games or blueprints if you are a patron supporter. So thank you very much everyone who's supporting. Now let's break this down and just explain why it's so difficult. The issue here is that it all revolves around the durability of the biter eggs. Because the fact that the biter eggs have an expiry date or expire after 30 minutes means that everything has to be working on a 30-minute cycle. So ideally what we'd want to do is we would be bringing some biter eggs onto a ship. We would be on Nilaus, we would be flying out here into the solar system and harvesting some Promethium, and after 30 minutes we would sort of land back here, and if we landed back here, and then we could get some new biter eggs, we could unload the Promethium. That just doesn't work, because the flight time here, that's 15,000 plus 15,000, no, plus 30,000 plus 100,000, that is, so yeah, that's 145,000 kilometers before we even get to sort of touch the first bit of Promethium. That means it does not work like that. That means we have to, when we come, also another issue is that by the time, when we get the biters on board here, then they will start expiring immediately. So we need to start crafting immediately. So my optimization here is to say, I want to make sure that when I have biters on board, I'm 100% crafting. That should be the baseline. And we continue crafting until we don't have any more biter eggs left. So that's what we do here. We have now, we still have 210,000, so this is not very far. If you look how far out it is, it's only 65,000 kilometers out from the edge, and you can see that there's not so much Promethium yet, so the belts are kind of not really getting in here. So now we need to find a rhythm where we are going from here. We are coming back to Nilaus with Promethium on board so that we can start crafting immediately. That means we start crafting on the way out, and at some point out here, we are done crafting, and then we return. But what if we return too early? Then by the time we get back to Nilaus, we won't have enough to consume during this period here. So let's start by optimizing how much can we actually produce with the biters, with this part. Because if we look at here, if we look at our rate calculator, then it says 728 per second. That's not true. Why is it not true? Because if you look at it, you can see it stutters sometimes because I simply cannot shovel things in here fast enough. Sadness. So we need to look at the actual production mechanic here. And if we look at this, then we're looking at over here. So this is producing 35,000 per minute. Yes. And that means we are consuming biter eggs here. How much are we consuming? 11. Or if we look at it here, this is 115, 200, right? Then divided by 10 minutes and divided by 60 seconds. That means we're actually consuming 192 biter eggs per second when it is fully operational. Okay. So if we see 192 per second times 60 seconds times 30 minutes, this means that if this is running 100% from the second the biters are spawned to they expire, then we could consume 345,000 biter eggs. Now the thing is, when you launch things from space, if we go back here, we look at our launcher. Now it does take a little bit of time to shovel the biter eggs in here. It takes some time for the animation. it takes some time for the actual, by the time the animation is done, for them to actually arrive at the spaceship. And that means by the time the Biter eggs arrive on here and the first craft starts, they're already expired. So it's definitely not, it's definitely maximum 39 minutes. And then also, do we want this to be running so that it runs down to the last second? Okay, let's give it a half a minute of buffer here. That means we're now around 328. So this means that if we can get this spaceship to work 100% from as much of the time that the Biter eggs are available, it can run for, it can consume 328, maybe a little bit more. Hence why I import 330,000 Biter eggs per iteration. That is exactly why. So this is a hard constraint that we have because of the spaceship design. So this spaceship design is designed in such a way that it can at maximum consume 192 Biter eggs per second. And I want that to happen for 29 minutes out of 30 minutes. And that means that I can consume 300, and then we could do some calculations, 330,000 Biter eggs. And if we do that, then the recipe says 10 Biter eggs becomes 10 Promethium science, but then the productivity of 200 plus 200%. So that means it's actually multiplied by 3. So times 3, that means this will produce 990,000. It's funny how it's just not exactly not exactly a million, but 990,000 science per batch of, per batch, right? So this is how much we can do in one batch of Biter eggs. Now let's have a look at one of these that are hovering, and then see how much it has. It has 982. The reason why it has it doesn't have 990 is because when it arrives, the first biters arrive on the spaceship. It arrives in 2 batches. When the first arrives, it starts producing, and as soon as it reaches 2,000, it drops them off. So it actually does 4 iterations of this before the next batch of Biter eggs arrive, all the way up to 330,000. It can only receive, because of the number of cargo bays, it can only receive 218,000 in one batch, so it has to reach in 2 batches. And in that batch, time between the batches, it actually produces the 8,000 that it drops off immediately. So we can confirm that, yes, it looks correct. So that gives us another idea. Now, the next part would be, I've sort of used the baseline of saying 960 science per second is what I want to generate my science. Because if I look at the 960 science per second, then we multiply it by 2. This is basically looking at this here, like here. How fast do I have to produce it? Well, in order to flow down here, then multiplied by 2 because the biolabs are double efficiency, or only have the science pack drain 50%. And then productivity is, at this point, it's 820, which is way too much. This one times 9.2. And that gives us 17,000 per second times 60. What are we missing? Oh, times 60. There, 60. There we go. This is the science. So this is how much science we are then producing per minute. Does that seem correct? Yeah, it does seem correct. Good. And if we look up here, then I have sort of dialed it a little bit down because I've actually designed it towards this part here, 9.0. And then as we got a few extra research productivity gains, then we got a little bit more. But the thing is, we should actually look at, well, let's look at it at this level, because this is where I want. So now if we say a spaceship is producing, that's too much, 930,000 per cycle, then, and I'm consuming 960 per second, that means it has to complete a cycle in this many seconds. So if we say 1031 seconds divided by 60, that means it has to complete it in 17 minutes. Oh no, right, you can see the problem now. There is no way that a spaceship can take this long journey. Let's look at this one that's actually doing something. This long journey, go out and come back in 17 minutes. Also because it needs 30 minutes of production time to actually do it. So we would need at least 2 of these spaceships. This is why we see that we need more spaceships. So we need at least 2 spaceships to do this, because the round trip is, we need to have 1 ship coming in with this every 17 minutes. But then the question is, well, the next problem is, well, I said that I wanted to make sure that when we arrive at Nauvis, we can start producing Promethium or Promethium science immediately on the way out, and on the way out. And then by some time out here, we start collecting as much as we consume. And then on top of that, we have to build additional reserves so that when we go back, we arrive back here with enough to go all the way out. So let's say, for the sake of argument, this one is still producing and is still like really busy out here. Well, how much science do we actually need for the 30 minutes? That would be the next question. So we already know we have 330 biter eggs. This is how many biter eggs we're consuming. So if we look at again at the recipe, and says that we need 2.5 times as many Promethium chunks as that. So multiplied by 2.5. That means we need 825,000 Promethium in order to produce this. Yeah, that's going to be a problem, isn't it? Because if we look at production stats and then look at this one, looking over at 1 hour, here. Now we can look at the different spaceships here. Here you can see that the Promethium chunks, these are the most important thing. Here we have the block where we start producing Promethium and thereby also consuming. You can see the consuming the biter eggs and the Promethium. We're consuming 29,000 Promethium per minute when it's fully operational. And we do that for the 30 minutes or the 29 minutes here. This area under the blue graph represents 825. And you can see here, 824. So basically the same, 824,950. That's very, very close to the theoretical numbers that I got. So I'm very happy about this one as well. It says 989,940 and I calculated as 990,000. So numbers are confirmed. Now, then we need to figure out the next problem. And that's, let's see if we can find a good ship that actually has this graph fully encapsulated here. No. This one almost, but you're definitely not. You can see here there's a gap here. Let's see. Maybe this one is a good graph, because when we start going out into Promethium fields, there isn't a lot of Promethium, but it just slowly scales up. And you can see the numbers 15,000, 16, 17, 18, 19, 28, 29, 28, 29, 29. Only at this point do we gather as much Promethium as we're actually consuming, 29. So even when we've been flying out, let's say from there, this is 19 minutes ago, and this is 40 minutes ago. So we fly for 21 minutes out into the field, only to get enough Promethium. So now the question is, the area under the orange graph up to this point, how much is that? And this is something I've been tweaking and turning in order to find the optimal way where that the amount, let's say, the area under the graph over here is 825,000, yeah? So the question is, how long do you have to fly out here and come back before this number is 825,000? Because it has to be at least as much. So right now this ship is on the way back, and it will get back. And when we see on the ship, we can see that the storage buffer here is almost entirely full. It's very, very close to being full. And once it's full, we should actually see that it stops collecting. Once these ones are also full. So once it stops collecting here, we will actually see that this number here will be 825, or it'll be hopefully a little bit higher than 825, because that's the amount that I used on a cycle. So this is why is this the exact size it is? Well, it is because I needed to be able to store enough so that the round trip can this one can consume 825,000. So for example, I will not store 825,000 because while I'm producing here until I go to this point, the first, I don't know, 10 minutes of flight time is to get out into Promethium field. And then I start supplementing the buffer of Promethium with new, which means that it'll slower and slower and slower consume the buffer until it'll basically degrade the buffer entirely. But at that point, it has sort of reached the 29,000 it needs, and then it's slowly filling up the buffer again. And then after we're done consuming the byterex, it's actually going to keep filling the buffer until it is all the way, it gets out of this field. So what we could see is this one still has 150,000 kilometers left, but we can also see that it's not really consuming or getting very much. It's 14,000 per minute, so it's still getting something in, but it is almost filling up. Yes, so we should see that these stop collecting when this is full, which it will be very soon, and then they stop collecting. They'll just collect into the grabbers, and then they won't go out again. Come on, please confirm this. They need to have like 5 in each grabber. And, or maybe even more. Maybe it's actually a full stack. Well, this is still busy. Weirdly enough, this is still busy. But all this out here, they are not busy anymore because they have filled up their buffer. They've filled up their grabber buffer. And only this one is somehow still grabbing. Weird. That's a lot that it can keep in its... Okay, so now this is retracting and it's not coming out again. And then we can see, okay, so we're actually done. This one is also done. So now it's not collecting anymore. And if we look at the production graph, we should see this number just completely go to 0. So you could cut a little bit closer. We still, unless we could send it not as far out. So how do I determine how far out it goes? Well, I've just simply said it flies out for 1,500 seconds divided by 60. That's 25 minutes. So it goes, it flies to the Promethium fields, and then when it gets here, it flies for 25 minutes out and then returns. And that gives me a buffer. Which one was it? It was it this one? I think it was this one. Nope, it's not this one. It's Magmarel, maybe. Yeah, 860. So this ship is now completely idle and just returning. It has produced all of it, all the Promethium chunks. It has a full buffer of 520,000 in asteroid chunks, and that means it's now coming back. So what happens when it comes back? Well, it stops by on Aquila on the way back to get some quantum processors, 40,000. It uses 33,000 on each iteration. So let's get 40,000 just to, I don't know, make sure, and also tops up on the fusion power, and then it goes back on Novice to drop it off. So that's the cycle of a single spaceship, and now we know how long it takes. It takes, well, about 50 minutes because it takes, let's see if we can find a good one here. Maybe you have something, or you've been idle for too long. Yeah. Let's see. This one here, we can see how long does it take to reach the Promethium field. That is from the time it starts actually producing the first bit of Promethium, because that's what happens. That's 90 minutes ago, until it gets the first bit of Promethium in there 11 minutes ago. So 19 to 11, so it takes about 8 minutes to get to fly the path here and here, or here onto here. That's 8 minutes, and then it takes 25 minutes, and then we can basically assume the same thing back. So it's 8 plus 25 plus 25 on the way back, plus 8 plus, of course, a stopover at Aquila where we have to wait for, I don't know, maybe 2 minutes. That means the whole round trip is 68 minutes. So if we are saying that we need 68 divided by 1 coming back every 17 minutes, well, we need at least 4 spaceships. That's very accurate, right? So, and therefore I have built 5, because just having a buffer. We don't want to be in a position where something happens, there's a little bit of a hiccup on Aquilo, and then suddenly we lose our 10-hour streak. So I put an extra here, but 4 spaceships should be enough to keep this. It is technically 14 point something minutes for each iteration to come in, so it should work. Right, so that should basically be it, right? Except it isn't, because there is a variance on this, and they might clump up at some point. For example, the science is not being consumed, or basically because I have 5 spaceships, then they're coming in with faster than they need, right? So if I'm coming in at, it was producing 990,000 per minute, No, per round trip, every 17 minutes, was it? Every 17 minutes. Or that's how much it... No, that's not how it does. It produces this every, what did I say, 68 minutes. Yes, and then I multiply that by 5. This is this much per minute. And then we multiply it by the to get it into how much science that is per minute. That's 2 for the productivity of biolabs times 9 for the productivity in the biolabs. That means it's 1.3 million, which means that what would happen is that I would actually, where's this? I would actually produce too much Promethium if I kept this running all the time. And then it would stockpile and overflow, and no matter how big the buffer is, it would overflow when it comes in, and comes in at sort of way over capacity. So I need some way of pacing it. Additionally, if a spaceship comes in, a Promethium ship comes in here, then it triggers all of these to launch and send up. But if another ship comes in a minute later, these are not done and ready with another 100 byte eggs. And the whole thing is designed around it must be ready so that it launches instantly, because otherwise if another spaceship comes in and this one is only at 50 byte eggs, then it will put the 50 byte eggs in here and wait for the next 55, 60, 65. In the meantime, the byte eggs that are sitting in here are expiring, which means that when they go to spaceship, they're going to expire too fast. So I can't have that. That means I have to guarantee that these spaceships do not arrive on Nauvis except after a certain interval. That means I have to instill a cadence here. So what have I done? You might have noticed this weird notification here, and that's how I do it. I have a token system to guarantee a cadence, and it's really advanced and it's really simple. It is very much like how trains were managed back in the old days on a single line train, that you had to have a baton to go on a single stretch of train, and only when it sort of reached the end could hand over that baton to the opposite, the driver hitting the opposite direction, then they could sort of use that stretch of one line or one-way track. So that's what we do. I can never find the cursor anymore on this Megabase. So what I've done is I've set up a little outserter here from here. This outserter says, or basically I'm using this token, epic gas barrel of petroleum. That's something that doesn't exist. So I just created one of these, and this is our token. There will be only one of those in the entire game, and this is the one that, if this is true, then you can do something. So this one basically says, if we have more than 1.5 million science already here, then you store this because you have high Promethium. Don't request any more ships, so that's a little bit of a pause here. Then it just sits here in this box until it drops below 1.5. So when it drops below 1.5, it gets ejected into a active private chest. So it goes back into the logistic network. So what happens here is that this is basically saying, if we have too much Promethium, don't start another loop. But what does a loop look like? Well, if this becomes available in the network, then we have a special dedicated ship that does nothing but this thing here. This is just basically requesting one petroleum gas barrel, just a single one. And it's sitting above Nauvis, just waiting. What is it waiting for? It's waiting for Nauvis to have less than 1.5. So when it has less than 1.5, it goes back into the logistics network on Nauvis, and it will then be requested by a rocket silo. The rocket silo will send it to our token ship. This one. This is the token ship, and then it will get there. So what the token ship will do is we'll fly it to Aquilo, and it will drop it off at Aquilo. So over an Aquilo, we're dropping it off, and we'll have here Promethium token. It requests that. So that gets dropped off, and now it's sitting on Aquilo. Then what? Well, the thing is, on Aquilo, we actually have set this up. We have a group here that says byte eggs and quantum processors. That's needed, but also require the token. This one is this fusion power cell is just there to make sure that I don't use the fusion power and drop it off on Nauvis, because Nauvis requests fusion power cells. So by just having a request of one means that I will not be dropping things off on the planet. You can't drop things off on a planet that's also requesting it. So this is basically just saying, go into Nauvis and don't accidentally drop off all your fusion power before you're going out to the Promethium field. You can sense that that's something that has happened, right? But this Promethium token, it's just sitting on Aquilo and says, you can't go until all requests are fulfilled. So this ship is ready to go. It has everything ready. It just wants to go to Novice to drop off the signs, but it is not allowed to until it gets the token. So we need to wait on Novice until the token is ready. So we'll wait for this one to drop below 1.5 and then see the flow out to get the token moved to Aquilo. While we're waiting for this one to drop below 1.5 million, we can also take a look at Macmorel here. Macmorel has completed the cycle and is almost back at Aquilo, where it will supplement. We can see here it has 7,000 left, and we will then need 33,000 because it has consumed 33,000. So it comes back at this location, and then it does a nice request from Aquilo, where it's just requesting all the 33,000. I don't think it can do all of it in one batch. No, it can do 28,000 in one batch, 28,800. So this will just top up here, which also is what you can see now is we already had Moon waiting, and now Macmorel is coming in to wait. So we can see that 4 ships are enough. If you look here, this is very close to actually switching. So we'll try to watch what happens, which is going to be nigh impossible because it's here. It's basically just when this one activates soon enough. We can't even see what it actually is, but that will move it just from this location and into that one. Come on, you can do it, right? 1.5. There's 400 left. Okay, and we should see it, and you can't see a damn thing. And especially with YouTube compression and all, then it's going to be a little bit of, there we go, nightmarish. So what happens now is it is in this, in here. It isn't. It has gone to some random here. One of these will now be dedicated to getting getting this one in, which I don't know which one it is. But at some point, one of these will launch, and it'll show the launch mechanic, and then it will send the token to the spaceship. Come on, it should be here. Any one of these could be. But then the point is, this goes up to the spaceship. We could find the spaceship up here. The token spaceship. Oh, there it is. There it is. It is launching the single barrel. So this is of course like a waste of resources and all that, but in a Megabase it doesn't really matter. So this one we can say it's on the way. So when it receives here, this is a fast ship, 500 kilometers per second, and then it will go all the way out to Aquilo and drop it off. So we'll see when it drops off, and at that point it can actually be either Macmorel or it can be Moon. It doesn't really matter which one it is, and it'll be basically random which one will get it. Or is it the one that arrived first? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. They're both going to be idle and ready by the time the ship gets here, so that should be no problem at all. And then we'll just see as that one gets in. Now our token ship is approaching Aquilo, and all it does when it gets in is just drop off the token, as we can see right here. Where is it? Where is it? Come on, dude. Drop it. There we go. There we go. It drops it off, and it'll take a little bit of time. Unfortunately, there's no ship-to-ship transfer, because otherwise we would just send it to the other ship, but has to drop down on Aquilo, has to be picked up by a rocket silo, has to be sent back up to either Macmorel or Moon. Another interesting thing that is about to happen here is that this one is down to 29,000 biters, so this is a good time to take a look at it. This is nerve-wracking. And it just shows how close we're actually cutting it, because we can see here this 27,000. We've been flying for, what is this? If this is 15,000 or 1,500, then this is about 1,200. So we've been flying out there for 18, 19, well, maybe 20 minutes or something. Let's say 20 minutes. And we still have a lot of biter eggs remaining. But we can also see is the Promethium chunks here, they are barely holding steady at this point. Because we can see we came back to Novice with 520,000 Promethium, and then on the way out we're actually consuming it. And if we look at this exact moment, we're now seeing that it's coming in at 27,000 and it's being consumed at 29,000. So there is like a small deficit. We can see it's coming in. These bylines are definitely not full, but it's coming in, and then it's prioritizing the stuff we harvest so that we don't exhaust our storage yet. But you could see how little is left on the storage, which is just a testament to how well orchestrated and designed this whole system is, that we're just running down to the last bit of Promethium before it actually turns around. And we're just going to let this run down to the last 5,000, and then we're going to see what that looks like. there we go. We also have another thing. We just arrived with a gas barrel here on Mackerel. So it wasn't actually Moon that was waiting. It was Mackerel that got this ticket here. So we now have the token on board Mackerel. And this is the way, because there's only one ship that can actually leave. So this is how we guarantee that not two ships will fly back to Navis. We can then say that the Mackerel here is flying back with the 982,000. And if we look back on Navis, we're down to 1.2 million. So this not even close to running out of Promethium here. And when it comes back in a couple of minutes with another about 1 million here, then it will be over. It'll probably be around 2 million. Oh, I absolutely hate that sound. It's just absolute noise. On the other hand, what we're looking at this ship. Yes, as we were burning through this, we're down to 15,000. We can see how little time is left. There's only 2 minutes left on the Biter-X, and it's cutting it close. We can see there, this was 32, 33. Now it's down to 31,000. So this is as far down as the storage go. You can see it flickers around here. And basically the condition here is that it'll get to the 15,000, but alternatively I'll have another condition which isn't triggering, but I was testing a lot of things to see if I should guide it by Biter-X and Promethium chunks, but it's much better to just have it on a time based, because it will be pretty accurate. And at this point we can see we're now up to 29,000. So only now do we actually harvest as much Promethium as we are consuming. And you can see this belt is pretty nice and full, and it's going in here, and we might actually just see like a single one sort of slip through here as this belt compresses. Maybe not. It's going to be, well, it is coming in at 29, but it will be able to get a little bit more. It'll go up to like 31 something here sometimes. So we'll start seeing like a little one flowing in. I would love to see that. Please give me that. Like, this belt is almost stuck. It would be so nice if we could see that. But you can see that as long as there's like the little gaps here, then it's still flowing at a full rate. But we're down to the last bits, 5,000 here. We can see that now there's only 1 minute left, and we can see how close we actually cut it. And then you might be like, oh, you can cut it even closer. But there's always like weird small variances. So I don't want to cut it any closer than what we have here. Because even though this doesn't look like much when we start with 30,000 or 330,000 Biter-X, then you really don't want 1,000 biters spawning right next to this thing that has 1,000 hit points. No, not a good idea. And we're down to 2,000, and here I would normally have a warning that pops up, but since we know that we're cutting it close and we are consistently cutting close, it's fine. So we're down to 98, 97, or 57. So by the time we kill this, there'll be like maybe 50 seconds left. So we could get a little bit more, but again, I don't really think that's worth it. I am very happy with this this cycle, and 49 is the last, 48 is the last second. There we go, 48, and now we have 0 biters left. What we'll then see immediately here is that the stockpile was at 31,000, but now, since there's no consumption here, now it redirects everything into the buffer again. The buffer down here is now no longer being consumed, and then the buffer starts filling up from the top. And that's just, then it just starts filling up, and now the objective is to continue to fill it up. It'll continue to fly out for a couple more minutes, and then it'll turn around, so that by the time it reaches here, by the time it sort of goes back here, it will be at 520,000. In the meantime, we can also see Mackerel has almost reached back to Navis, and that should be exactly what we want to see. And look at this. Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. Just dropping off 980,000 science, and here comes the last stragglers here, and that's it. So what happens now is that as it reaches 0, it will request the Biter-X. The Biter-X are coming in, and then the process starts over, because we got the quantum chips ready. We got 520,000 asteroid chunks, Promethium asteroid chunks. So all we need is the Biter-X, and once that Biter-X start coming in, we can start the cycle anew. And this cycle takes, if we look at on a 1 hour cycle, if we look at a 10 hour, unfortunately, on 1 hour, we can see that it takes a little more than an hour, because we don't see this moment hasn't started yet. This moment is the moment when it starts getting Promethium chunks, and the Promethium chunks only happens 8 minutes after we leave Navis. There's also the part about like the waiting time here on Aquilo can be any length, because that's now adjusted for how much. Yeah, it's now coming in at a cadence. There we go. This is our Bidirects. That's just the first 218,000 or something. Yeah, 220,000, 219,500, and the rest comes in. So you can see now it starts working, and as it reaches 2,000, it drops it off as a package, and that does that 4 times before it actually leaves. That's usually how it goes. There we go. We got all of it, and then when this one leaves, then it has left left Nilaus, and it has started a cycle anew, and that just continues. We have 5 ships. We could make do with 4 ships, but these are just cycling, and this guarantees that not only do we have the science needed, but we also make sure that we don't have too much, but we also make sure that we don't have too little. And it's all just working smoothly, and has been so for 10 hours. So this is basically the conclusion of my Megabase, 1 million science per minute, consistently for all sciences, working smoothly, and of course at a little bit of a suffering with updates frames. When we're not looking at something super active, it's at 35, which I'm actually really happy about. I think that's a pretty good update frame to have. Thank you very much for watching this series. Thank you for following it. Thank you for being part of the design process on Twitch as we are designing this, and also the good comments on YouTube and on Discord. So I'll be continuing the masterclass series on Twitch and YouTube, so that will continue. I might do like a single video for the masterclass, for the Megabase, like how to make a base in Space Age, just to collect the whole thing into one shorter video. But of course, as remember, if you want to build it yourself, you can do that if you're a Patreon supporter, because Patreon supporters get access to all the cool designs that I've been using in the series, spaceships, all the different planets, everything, and of course also save games, so you can just load it up and snatch something if you want other designs that are not sort of compiled as blueprint. Thank you very much for everyone supporting the series. I'll be back with more Factorio for sure, and other games. Until then, take care and stay effective.